At the beginning, we see a man who is seemingly rolling a dead body in a carpet as if to hide its identity. He seems to have no remorse on his face as he does so. Whose body is that and why were they killed? We have no idea. The man casually takes out a cigarette and starts smoking. He comes closer to his apartment window and we see him clearly. He is so gaunt, his face so hollow that he barely seems human. He lights his cigarette and casually smokes. This is the story of a machinist. After his initial relaxation, he brings the dead body to a desolate place and struggling to carry it, he dumps it in a huge water body. His face seems almost ghost-like with wounds and scratches all over it. His eyes look as if they'll pop out of his face any moment now. At a distance, he sees a light flickering indicating someone's presence. He hurriedly throws the body, hurtling it into the water and plans to run away. Just then, a person comes up and asks him about his identity. The man is shocked to see the questioner. At his apartment, he desperately washes his hands with steaming hot water and bleach. It seems like such painful things have no effect on him whatsoever. He is in horrible condition and seems to have nothing but a loose drape of skin over his almost hauntingly skeletal body. He sees something in the reflection of the mirror hung above the sink. Surprised, he looks back at it to see a small sticky note that says, "Who are you?" He has no idea where it came from. He is confused as to whether it is the reality or his wild imagination due to his insomnia. The machinist, whose name is Trevor Risnick, happens to be an emaciated industrial worker suffering from a one-year battle with insomnia and his own sanity. He usually goes to Stevie, a pleasure giver, to have good time and find some comfort in his life. Trevor looks at himself in the mirror and his bones almost seem to pop out of his body. He winces at his own body. Stevie mocks Trevor's gaunt body. He soon pays her and leaves. Back at work, the manager at the machinery urges everyone to work harder. They work like donkeys, day and night, making and fixing machines. Trevor's the guy who knows all the rules and works accordingly, being a pain in the ass for the manager. He constantly fights him because the manager makes them overwork themselves almost to death. Fatigue has led to a crippling deterioration of his body, which is why his co-workers never talk to him and shy away from him. They mock him for being ghastly. Soon, he meets a pretty waitress at an airport diner who says the same things to him as Stevie does. He's confused as to how that happened. He convinces himself that it's just deja vu. The waitress is cordial to him as the clock ticks away. Marie and Trevor flirt as she makes him food. She seems to have genuine care for him. She consoles him, saying everyone gets lonely and she's there for him. He leaves the diner and goes back to his rusty apartment. He seems to be almost in a trance-like state. He's droopy and sleepy but doesn't really sleep. He has an obsessive compulsion to write himself reminder notes and keep track of his dwindling weight, both scribbled on yellow sticky notes in his apartment. The whole aura seems to be very threatening and scary around him. One day at work, his boss asks for a urine sample because he progressively tends to lose weight. Everyone suspects him of doing drugs. He hesitantly hands the sample as goes to his car to smoke a cigarette. He's about to fall asleep when he hears a strange voice. He looks out his window to see another man in his car. They have a slight conversation where the man tells Trevor he's a worker there too. The unknown worker introduces himself as Ivan. Ivan tells Trevor he is working the swing shift, but Trevor has never seen the man there. He is incredulous but joins Ivan for a smoke anyway. Ivan walks away and Trevor is left further suspicious. At night, Trevor tells Stevie he doesn't want to have good time but rather just lie down. He tells her he hasn't slept in a year and she is appalled. She tells Trevor she's worried about him but he brushes it off. The next day, a co-worker by the name of Miller asks Trevor for some help with a machine. Trevor gets distracted by Ivan working and bumps into the start button of the machine. Ivan makes weird hand gestures of killing to Trevor. Trevor is confused and disgusted at the same time, but just then, Miller gets his sleeve caught and ultimately loses his arm in the accident. He screams and wails in pain as his whole arm is cut off. His co-workers are enraged at what he's done. Trevor is filled with guilt at what he's done, but Ivan is nowhere to be seen. Trevor retches at his own sight. His weight is declining drastically. He starts seeing post-its on his fridge out of nowhere. They resemble a game of hangman. He asks his landlord about it, but no one has any idea about it. The next day, Trevor is called out to investigate Miller's accident. The investigator showed Trevor pictures of Miller's mutilated hands. Trevor tells everyone he bumped into the activator by mistake because Ivan distracted him. The manager and boss claim that Ivan doesn't exist. He is shocked at the revelation as no one seems to have heard of Ivan. The investigators ask him if he's had any head injuries lately. Suddenly, he is haunted by brief flashes of recurring imagery, and things such as his car cigarette lighter take on a menacing air. He sees his old van that he used to throw the dead body out in the middle of the road. To find solace, he goes back to Marie and chats with her. He grows closer to her and Marie offers Trevor to come spend Mother's Day with her and her son for some comfort. Trevor readily agrees. Another unusual thing is that whenever he is with Marie, the clock always ticks only 1 second. He doesn't pay much heed to it and goes back to work. His co-workers express their disgust for him and claim that nobody wants him there. He has become a liability to everyone around him. He feels immense guilt but doesn't say anything and leaves. Right then, he sees Ivan drive out of the machinery. Trevor tries to stop him but Ivan keeps driving. Trevor follows him to find out why Ivan lied to him about working in the machinery. He yells at him to stop. He tells Ivan he wants to talk and Ivan tells Trevor to follow him. They meet at a pub. Ivan tells him he wasn't lying about anything. He shows Trevor his abnormal hands with missing fingers. Trevor asks him to stop fooling around because Miller lost his arm and his manager doesn't even know he exists. Ivan turns a deaf ear to everything he says. He sees a photo of Ivan fishing with Trevor's co-worker Reynolds, which he discovers in Ivan's wallet when Ivan leaves it unattended. Trevor feels like this proves Ivan is real and he is relieved. At home, he notices the same sticky note of the hangman again. The last letters read E and R. Trevor thinks he's gone insane and goes to see Stevie in case something happens to him. His guilt and hallucinations deteriorate his condition even more. Trevor believes that someone or some people, probably one or some of his co-workers, are out to get him, using a phantom employee named Ivan as their front to get revenge for what he did to Miller. Stevie asks him to calm down as it was an accident, and if they wanted him out, they could just fire him, but Trevor's not convinced. On Mother's Day, he meets Marie and her son, called Nicholas, at an amusement park for a fun day out. They click pictures together. Marie gets a call from her ex, so Trevor goes with Nicholas on a funhouse ride called Route 666. The ride starts as a harmless scare ride, but begins to show increasingly disturbing images as it advances with cut-up bodies and disgusting figures. Trevor realizes the ride was a very bad idea and wants to finish it fast. They go on until the flashing lights cause Nicholas to suffer a seizure. Marie tells him Nicholas has always been epileptic and it's not his fault because he didn't know about it. Trevor feels incredibly guilty for what happened to Nicholas. He goes to Marie's house for a drink. She expresses her liking towards him. There he sees the clock ticking 1 second only as it reaches 1:30. He sees a sticky note on Marie's fridge as well and hurries to his apartment as the images and handwriting are somewhat same. He traces the word mother on the sticky note left at his fridge in similarity to the one in Marie's fridge, which was drawn by Nicholas. Does the word really mean mother? He starts to question his own sanity because of what's happening. He hurriedly rushes to open his own childhood album and sees all the instances of his mother and him as a kid. They're exactly the same as the ones he took of Marie and Nicholas. The eerie similarity raises some doubt as to what's real and what's not. No longer able to think clearly, Trevor suspects that the bizarre events are a concerted effort to drive him insane. At work, he sees Miller come back and profusely apologizes to him. Miller forgives him. He goes back to work, but suddenly a machine starts working while his hand gets caught in it. He screams for help as his hand is stuck, and after begging for a while, one of his co-workers helps him out of this almost fatal accident. But this causes Trevor to lash out in rage at his co-workers as he accuses them of trying to get revenge and kick him out. He tries to tell his co-workers about Ivan again, but they laugh at him. He tries to pull out the picture he had of Ivan and Reynolds, but it's not there anymore. He desperately searches for it, but to no avail. It was as if the picture never existed. His manager asks him to calm down, but Trevor fights him instead. As a result, he's immediately fired. Increasingly distracted and alienated, Trevor forgets to pay his utility bills and his electricity is disconnected. A dark, viscous liquid begins trickling out of the freezer, coating the refrigerator door with streaks of what appears to be blood. He goes to Stevie, who wants to leave hooking and start a relationship with him, to which he happily agrees. He lights his apartment with lanterns for the time being, but that doesn't stop him from seeing blood leaking out of his fridge. He doesn't know where it's coming from or if it even is real. The note in his fridge has more letters added. He adds some more letters and the note finally reads Miller. Trevor confronts Miller about his accident and how Trevor himself lost an arm too. Miller tells him to get out of his property, but Trevor doesn't listen, causing him to get beat up. He runs out of Miller's house to see Ivan outside in his car. Ivan flees after seeing Trevor, but Trevor follows suit. He picks up Ivan's license plate, but his car dies in the middle of the heist. He goes to the DMV to find out more about Ivan. The workers there don't help him unless he has a criminal complaint to file. Trevor tries to convince the worker there with all sorts of lies, but nothing works. Trevor then jumps in front of a car so he can go to the police and say he suffered a hit and run. He is battered up and asks the police for Ivan's address, giving Ivan's license plate. The plates end up being in Trevor's name. The policeman asks him to explain his motive, but Trevor runs away. He goes back to Stevie, who tries to help him heal. She bathes him and tries to get him to the hospital, but he refuses. He then finds the picture of Ivan around Steve's bed and accuses her of being in on the plot against him. Stevie tries to walk away, but Trevor stops her and continues hurling abuse at her. Stevie tells him the picture is not of Ivan but of him. She sees him in the picture with Reynolds and not Ivan. This leads to confusion and then a heated argument, to which Trevor is thrown out. He is mad at Stevie and thinks Ivan is her ex and they're plotting against him together. He hurriedly drives back to the airport diner to meet Marie, but the woman there says Marie doesn't exist. The woman even goes as far as to say that Trevor always came to the diner but never spoke. He rather just stared at his coffee. Trevor feels like he's going insane listening to everyone around him. Is he really mad? Was all this just a figment of his imagination? Or are all of these people on the plan to prove him mad? Trevor yells at everyone at the diner, thinking Ivan paid them all. The waitress kicks him out too. He sees Ivan in the driveway, so he follows him back to his apartment, only to find Ivan and Nicholas already going in. He goes in and has a fight with Ivan in an attempt to save Nicholas. He cuts Ivan's throat but can't find Nicholas. He looks inside his bleeding fridge only to find the rotting heads of fishes. He feels disgusted at this. Then we finally see the real picture. It was never Ivan in the photo. It was Trevor himself. Trevor then tries to dump the body, but discovers that in almost the blink of an eye, the body is missing. At the beginning of the movie, the rolled up body was none other than Ivan's. But when he throws it into the lake, the carpet opens with nothing in it. There's no dead body in it. Then, the person who asks him what he's doing at the start turns out to be none other than Ivan. Trevor is beyond confused at this point. The scene skips back to his place where he once again sees Ivan and the reflection of a sticky note on the wall. This is where he realizes he made Ivan up. It was none other than him with the red car that he always saw Ivan in. He dressed up the way Ivan did, and he also made up his encounters with Marie and Nicholas. None of it was real. He realizes he killed Nicholas long ago in a hit-and-run accident. Marie was the one who ran to her son after Trevor hit him. Trevor flees the scene quickly, but his guilt starts eating him up. The hangman game ends up saying killer. His guilt has caused his insomnia and trip into madness. Ivan was nothing, was his guilt who has come to life. Ivan was none other than his guilt which caused him to go mad and have sleepless nights. He subconsciously tortured himself for a year for what he did to Nicholas. He turns himself in, and finally in his jail cell, he can start to get some sleep. The movie ends with his guilt finally settling as he starts to repent for his mistakes. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to end recaps for more mystery movies like this.